Hi, yarn tubers, and welcome back to Wanderlust Crochet and the Crochet Skills Development course. This is part 2 of assignment number 1. I'm Dana, and Dooley is supervising from the bunk. Today we're going to be making your first dishcloth. Hopefully you still have your notes from last week, and I want to thank Jewel from Colorado for pointing out that I forgot to put the chain 1 at the beginning of the row. When we are going back and forth in single crochet, we start each row with a chain 1. This is our turning chain. Thank you, Jewel, and at any time, if any of you catch me making a mistake, please, I want to hear from you. Please email me as Jewel did. That was great. Hopefully you gathered up all your supplies. I did suggest a pure white. They didn't have white when I went shopping. I got this ecru. But any solid color, well, you know, the variegateds are fine. I hear that they bleed, so you have to soak them in vinegar to set that color so that the colors don't bleed. Now, let's look at the label here. This is 100% cotton. It is it's a yarn weight of 4. They go from 1 to 6. Number 4 is also called medium. It's also called worsted. Overseas, it's called Aran. These are gauge symbols. You need to crochet up a gauge when you're doing things like clothing, you know, garments, or more sophisticated patterns. This is a dishcloth. We are not going to worry about gauge. The thing that matters to us right now is that the recommended hook size, see, those are needle size. Recommended hook size is 5mm, USH, or number 8. These symbols, if you go onto the Yarn Council's website, these pertain to care instruction. Basically what this is telling us is that it's machine washable and machine dryable. That's a great thing about crochet dishcloths. Now let's talk about your hook. Hopefully you picked up either this 3-pack of GH or I, or at least just an I hook. These boy ones, they say on them H, number 8, 5.0mm. This is the G and this is the I. These are perfect for starting out. Eventually, you know, you may want to go on to something that's a little more expensive. These Clover Soft Touch are my favorites. The other things are scissors, a pen and paper, your yarn or darning needle, large eye, and blunt tip. Now, the first thing I want you to do is cut 4 pieces of yarn off of your yarn ball that are 3 to 4 inches long. I'm going to have you using stitch markers to help you find your stitches because they're kind of hard to identify in the beginning. So get that done and meet me back here. Okay, I'm going to be working in yellow because I think it shows up better on this black background. The tail end, this is the tail end, and the end that goes to your yarn ball or skein or whatever you're working from is your working end. I have my working end on my non-dominant side. The tail end and the hook go towards my dominant hand. First thing I want you to do is learn how to create a slip knot. Now, I tie a regular knot like this, and I want you to do that a couple of times. Just tie a regular knot and then take it out. And after you've done that a couple of times, I want you to make it a slip knot. Easy enough. Just start to tie a knot, only this time don't pull that end through, just make it a loop. I want you to make a couple of slip knots now and practice making slip knots. Then, after you've practiced that 3 or 4 times, then you're going to insert your hook into that teardrop loop. These loops are teardropped, and the shape of the head of our hooks are actually from top to bottom. At the top they're a little wider and the point here is narrower. They slide through those teardrops. If you've got your hook face this way, you're going to hook it. But if your teardrop is like this, you want that hook pointed straight down to slide through. Okay, so here's how I hold my working end. I always have the yarn going over the top of my index finger so that I can work my index finger to increase or decrease tension. It goes in front of my two middle fingers and behind my little finger. I want you to keep practicing putting it in your hand like that. Pause the video if you have to. Then I use my second finger and my thumb to kind of stabilize and hang on to the work. Okay, we're going to make our first chain. Now, Mikey at the Crochet Crowd talks about this as like working a rowboat. Here's how I explain it, and I like that description. It's called yarning over. This is a yarn over. But the term yarn over suggests that you're working the yarn itself. Don't work the yarn. Make the hook work. Your hook starts out in this kind of hold. This is how I hold my hook. Others hold it like a fork. I hold it like a knife. I start out with the point facing down as if I'm going to go through that loop. And I go under and up behind, and I twist the hook up, and I come forward with it and twist it down, and keep your tension pretty loose. Come down and gently pull it through the loop. That's one chain. Now I want you to do it again. Go up, come forward, and go down, and gently keep everything loose and relaxed, and pull through. Yarn over, point the hook down, pull through the loop. Yarn over, point the hook down, pull through the loop. Keep everything loose. Yarn over, pull through the loop. And as we go, as we're chaining, see how the chain gets further and further away from my stabilizing fingers? I just keep moving up. So sometimes I'll do 1, 2, 3, and readjust. 1, 2, 3, and readjust. How, it depends on, everybody's hands are different sizes. Now, the very next important thing, I'm going to make that loop really big so I can take the hook out of it. The very next important thing, and I'm going to set this down here, and I'm going to bring my phone down a little closer. I want you to notice the anatomy of these chains. See how we have all these teardrop shaped loops? They're all teardrops. Now when you're looking at the top of a stitch, you'll stitch into the top like this. This is called the front loop. This is called the back loop. And if you turn this chain over, you're going to see like a series of, like a spine. This is called the third loop. And when you first start out with your foundation chain, and then you turn and start to put single crochet stitches back into the chain, this is the loop you're going to put your stitches in. Now, first set of practice. I want you to practice making chain. I'm going to have you rip it out, which is called frogging. Rip it out, frog it all the way back. I want you to make a slip knot. Get your hook in there. Sure, Dana, you can do it. Like you know what you're doing. Okay. Where's my... It's hard to look through the phone and not directly at the work. Okay, make sure you got... It's not too tight. I want you to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Let's do 21 just to make it easier to count, because I want you to put a stitch marker in number 20. So when we count stitches, bit. When we count stitches, we count these loops back. We don't count the loop that was on our hook. This is the first chain from the hook. This is the second chain from the hook. And this is number 20. So what I want you to do is roll over and look at the back. So the first chain from the hook, there's the third loop. Second chain from the hook, there's the third loop. Open that up a little bit. Stick your hook in there. And I want you to just pull one end of one of these stitch markers through and straighten it up a little bit. Get your hook back in the loop and chain another 20. Make sure you didn't twist your... So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. To practice chaining, I want you to chain 20, put a stitch marker in at every 20 chains, and stop when you've reached 100 chains. When you've reached 100 chains, I want you to stop and look at where your stitch markers are placed. I want you to look at your stitches and examine the anatomy of that chain. Then I want you to frog it back to nothing, start with another slip stitch, and I want you to make that chain of 100 5 times. I want you to practice chaining. Ideally, I would have you do it 10 times, but I don't want to overwhelm everybody. If you really want to be a super chainer, do it 10 times, but put a stitch marker in every 20 chains and then frog it back. And then meet me back here and we will get started on the single crochet. Okay, are you done practicing your chain? That is so important in the beginning, and a lot of people don't realize how important it is to just chain, chain, chain. You know, you could sit in front of the TV and just sit and chain over and over again, frogging, doing a new slip knot and chaining and frogging again. This will create an excellent foundation to your crochet in the future. Okay, now I went ahead and drew up a little chart, and I actually numbered the stitches across. We are going to chain 25, and that last chain is going to count as our turning chain. Single crochet in the second chain from the hook in that third loop, and we're going to do that all the way across. Here we go. Okay, and here's my quirky way of measuring. I measure down to the scar to do my slip knot, and that way I make sure I have plenty of tail in order to... Let me show you that again. Did I show you that earlier? I can't remember. This is a weird thing I've been doing for years. I start with it between my 2 fingers. I bring it down to the scar on my arm, which is right below my wrist, and I pinch right there, and that's where I approximately make my slip stitch so that I have plenty of tail to weave in or work over later on. Okay, so I'm going to snug it up a little bit, not too hard. Let's chain 25. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Go ahead and pause the video. Meet me back here after you've chained 25. Okay, have you chained your 25? See those teardrops? We want to keep this pretty flat and not like twisted up. And we are going to put a single crochet into the second chain from the hook. We do not count the loop that's on the hook. Here's the first chain, and there's the second chain. Turn it over, and there is that third loop. Now sometimes, if it's too tight, I will insert the yarning needle under there to kind of loosen it up. So insert your hook into the third loop, yarn over, And see the see the shape of your teardrop and where the point of your hook is pointing. Pull through, and this is called pulling up a loop. Yarn over and pull through 2. That is a single crochet. Insert your hook into the next third loop of the chain, yarn over, pull through, and pull up a loop. Hang on to your work here with your fingers. Yarn over, pull through 2. Insert your hook into that third loop, yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Insert your hook. Sometimes I just use my fingernail to make sure the strands are where they're supposed to be. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull through. Loose stitches. Relax your hand. Yarn over, pull through the 2 loops that are on your hook. Insert. Yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop. There's 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through 2. Now I want you to do this all the way across. I know it's a little fiddly, but pause the video and meet me back at the end of this row. This will be row 1. Okay, I've done 22. This one's going to be 23. Get everything put back together here. Gently, everything gently, up and down. Oh, look at that dog hair on my finger. Dog hair is my world. Dog hair. This is tough to do when I'm looking through the phone. Okay, and then the very last one is right next to that knot. Use my thumbnail. Sometimes you can use the darning needle to make sure you get everything in the right place. Now, I'm going to bring that loop up a little bit, and I'm going to count back my single crochet stitches. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I can readjust here. 6, 7, 8, 9. This is tough. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24 right there. Might be a good idea, depending on how your stitches are looking, to put a stitch marker in that very last one there, or the very first one actually. Hook that baby over and pull it through so that you can identify it when you come back across. There's row 1. Now I'm going to show you the pattern. I don't remember if I showed you the pattern, because you're going to need to pause and write this down at some point anyway. Here we go. Single crochet dishcloth pattern. Let's bring this down a little bit. Materials: 1 ball of 100% cotton worsted weight yarn, an H number 8 5mm hook, scissors, and a yarn needle. These are the abbreviations: stitch or stitches. SS is slip stitch. Sometimes it's SLP, ST. Your pattern should have this information provided for you. The chain, the single crochet, and RD for round. Pattern: we chain 25 And we just did row 1. We single crocheted in the second chain from the hook and single crocheted in each stitch across. Now we're going to turn. And there is our stitch count in parentheses, which we already counted. So here we are at the end. I just completed my last single crochet, and I'm going to turn my work. I turn it towards me like I'm turning a page. Good. Get tangled up here, Dana. Okay. It's weird looking through the phone, that's for sure. Okay. So here I am back on the back side. Now, identify, see where that last single crochet is? It's right here. See, I just stuck my hook in there, and there's that teardrop of stitches right there. There's the second one. I stick my hook in underneath those, the front loop and back loop. There's that teardrop. Okay, it's hard to look. Okay, so you begin each row with a chain 1, very loose, very nice, and then here's the post of the first one, there's the post of the second one, and right in between you should be able to get your hook in underneath that teardrop of a stitch, that last one from the last row. Bring up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and there's your second one. Insert your hook, rest my arms a little bit, yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. There's the other 2 stitches, that top of that stitch that looks like a teardrop. Your hook goes right in underneath there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Get some slack here so I can have nice loose stitches. Insert my hook underneath those 2 loops, yarn over, pull through, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, I want you to pause the video and meet me back at the end. Okay, I have done 22 of my 24 stitches. Now, let's get focused. Focus, please. Okay, I have 2 left. I have this one. I go underneath those 2 loops, which is the top of the single crochet from the previous row. Yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now, do you see how fiddly and hard to find that last one can be? That is why I have you put a stitch marker in there. So insert right where that stitch marker is, pull it out, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Now take a look at your stitches. You have 2 rows here, and I want you to recognize how your stitches look. 2 rows of single crochet into a foundation chain. You are well on your way. Okay, turn your work like you're turning a page. Use your thumb or something to just recognize where that first single crochet is right there. Chain 1, and the reason why we chain 1 is because a single crochet is 1 chain high, and this brings you from down here to up here. Okay, so insert your hook into that first single crochet, yarn over, bring up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so now you have, according to your teardrops, you have 1, 2, 3 single crochet. Get into that first one, kind of open it up, because I want you to insert your hook in that first one. Grab a stitch marker. Sure, Dana, that's how you do it. And pull one end of that piece of yarn, your stitch marker, so that it's in that first single crochet, so that you can find it when you come back. We didn't do it on this end, and you're going to see how difficult it is to find it. That last one, it's a little fiddly, but I'll show you when we get down there. So pause your video and meet me at the end. Okay, I just counted the top of my stitches across, those teardrops, and I have 22. That means there's 2 left. So I'm going to insert my hook into number 23, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, this is what happens in the beginning when we're new at this and we cannot see that last stitch. It's very hard to find because I did not put a stitch marker in it. So there it is. There's the teardrop, using my yarn needle to find it. Now I can get my hook in there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Turn your work. We're going to go on to row 4. Okay, chain 1 and single crochet into that first stitch. 1, 2, and 3. Take my hook out. I'm going to insert my hook in that first stitch. Sure I am. And I'm going to pull one end of a stitch marker through there, just so that I can find it later on. Now, single crochet across and meet me at the end of row 4. Okay, I've got 2 left on row 4. There's a difference between working in rows and working in the round, so that's why I keep correcting myself. And here's that last stitch. Thankfully, I've got a stitch marker in there. Insert the hook, pull out the stitch marker, yarn over, pull through, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, I want you to be able to recognize that you have 4 rows of single crochet here. Take a look at that. You've got your foundation chain, and you might want to, mark every so many rows. You're at 4. So you might want to leave a stitch marker in there so that you can keep count and stop at row 26. So turn your work, turn the page, chain 1, oops, you dropped it. Insert your hook into that first single crochet and work a single crochet. 1, 2, 3, get into that first single crochet again and work a stitch marker in there, just one end of it pulled through. Okay, and single crochet across. And there goes the train. Okay, and meet me at the end of the row. And here we are at stitch number 22. Here's number 23, and I have a stitch marker in number 24. Pull that out of there. Now, I want you to pause the video and come back after you have 26 rows. Here we are at row 26 and stitch number 22. There's 23, and there, hopefully you're using stitch markers. There's number 24. Light and easy. To finish off, I want you to chain one. I want you to leave a tail of about 6 or 8 inches. Snip it off and pull it through. Snug it down a little bit. Now we are going to weave in our ends. I have my yarn needle with the big eye and blunt tip. I just fold that down and push it through there. Okay. To weave in, I go through in between the stitches. And if you make 3 passes, according to Mikey at the Crochet Crowd and some other great channels, 3 passes will ensure that your stitches will not come out. So there's 1. There's 2. Let me get the tail out of there. Now 1 more pass. Make sure we're not. And here's 3. And I am just going to snip the end. And there, that's how to weave in your ends. Go ahead and meet me back here after you have woven in from the bottom of your work. Okay, I'm sorry that cut off so abruptly. Still learning how to edit. So we have you have a very functional dishcloth or washcloth here right now. But we're going to go ahead and do a border. I want you to write this down. Go ahead and pause the video right here and write down what I have written and then start the video again. Now, I made kind of a little makeshift chart here that basically it's not an actual chart, but let's suppose that this is your dishcloth and these symbols that represent single crochets all the way around, that's your border. And let's assume that there's 24 across here. There's 26 because we're going to put 1 in the side of each row. We're going to start right here, go across and do 24, and then in that same stitch, we're gonna have 3 in the corners, and the third one is going to count as your first one going down the side of your 26 rows. When you get to the end, you're going to have 3 in the corner, and the third one is going to count as your first one going across as 24. The last one is going to have, there are going to be a total of 3. Here, we'll say this is number 24. Then you've got your 3 in the corner, but the first one, the last one of that set of 3 starts as number 1 and goes to number 26. I hope that makes sense. Please email me if it doesn't. So, I'm going to set that to the side. Bring our work back. And the first thing I'm going to have you do is put in stitch markers. We're going to go to the very first of your last row. You ended up here, but the first one of row 26 is right here, and we're going to put a stitch marker in there. Ha ha ha. Sure, Dana. And the very last one, the one where you tied off, you're going to put a stitch marker there. Hello. Sure I am, Dana. Okay. And then down at the next corner, find that corner, find that first chain right there. Put a stitch marker in there. Okay, sorry about that. I had to grab another stitch marker. And then find the last one here. Right there. Okay. Now, I'm going to use what's left of this little ball of cotton yarn. I'm going to do my little measuring thing again. We're going to do another slip knot. Okay, got our slip knot on. Our hands are relaxed. Our shoulders and our stomach are relaxed. Our breathing is regular. We're going to insert the hook into that first stitch. I'm going to pull out my stitch marker. I'm going to yarn over, pull through and bring up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2. There's our first single crochet. We are going to single crochet 24 across, and I will have you meet me at the end again. And by the way, if I start going too fast, remember that the pause button is your friend. Okay, see you at the end. Okay, I'm at number 22. Number 23 is a little tight, so I'll just take my time, relax, and I'm going to insert my hook where that stitch marker is. I'm going to pull the stitch marker out, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now, I want you, because we've got to do 3, there's 1, and I want you to do a second one, but I want you to notice we are in not only the top of this stitch, but now we're going into the side of this stitch. And I want you to recognize that there's a hole there, right there. There's the middle one of the 3, and there's the third one of the 3, and now that third one, unlike the first one which was in the top of the stitch, the third one is actually in the side of the stitch. There was a pretty good gap there. And you're going to notice there's going to be a small gap, and then there's going to be a larger one where it almost looks like there's a chain right there. And then there's going to be a smaller gap and a larger one. Smaller one, larger one. Those are where we're going to put are single crochets. So the third one in the corner is considered the first one for this side. So the second one's going in that smaller gap. Just ease it in there. And the third one is going in the bigger gap. Smaller gap. Bigger gap. Smaller gap right there. Bigger gap. Smaller gap. And what these are the sides of each row, the ends of each row. Now I want you to meet me at the end again into the corner. You can do this. Okay, I want to show you something. There's 24. There's 25, and there's a side of 26. Now you can put one in there and two up here, or you can put one here, skip that small gap, and just put all three in the top of that first chain. Either way is fine because you're still going to have the 26 going down the side. So I'm going to go 25, and I'm going to skip over that last gap, and I'm going to put my hook in that first chain and put number 26, which is the first of the three that turn the corner. I'm going to put the second of the three that turn the corner. And here's something I forgot to have you do down here. Here's the third of the three, which is number 1 going across is 24. But in each corner, in that middle stitch, that turning stitch, I want you to put a stitch marker so that you can find it easily coming back around. Right there. And then up here we did it. 1, 2, 3. So the middle one, let's gently put a stitch marker in there. There we go. Now this is, I want you to notice that we're no longer working in rows. Now we are working in the round. So here we go across the bottom. The last single crochet in this group of 3 is considered number 1 going across. Turn your work and you can see the next one where these chains may be a little tight, so just ease it in there. Use that blunt tip of your hook to your advantage to get into the right spot. Don't fight it, just gently pull it through. So that's considered number 2. See where the top of the stitch is? And go right underneath the top of that stitch. Go underneath both of those in the teardrop. This is why I had you crochet into that third loop on the back side of the chain, so you would have these nice teardrops across the bottom, and you can recognize those because it's the same teardrops you've been crocheting into through your whole project. Okay, so I want you to put, there's number 3 and number 4. Take your time, work your way across until you get to number 24 where your stitch marker is, and I'll meet you back here. You are doing great. Okay, so here I've got 22 across, and I want to say something to you right now. If you look back at your work and you think that you have made a bunch of mistakes, I don't want you to sweat it. I want you to roll with it. I want you to relax. I want you to forgive yourself, because it's just a dishcloth, and it's a matter of practice, and you will get better and better. And I know that this bottom row can be a little tight and frustrating. Don't sweat it. Do not sweat it. You should see some of the stuff that I gave away as gifts in the beginning. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm going to do number 23. And right here where my stitch marker is, I'm going to do number 24. Put that in there, pull my stitch marker out. Okay, now we have to turn the corner. I'm going to put 2 more in here. Boy, I've got a messed up looking corner there, don't I? Whew! I'll find a spot somewhere. One thing about the first round in this border, in most of my projects, if I'm going to put a border on them, no matter what the fancy frilly border I decide upon, I start out with this first round as a single crochet so that I have stitches I can stitch into when I do something else. So this first round doesn't have to be super pretty. Okay, so I've got 2 in there. I'm going to put my third one. Just relax. I'm going to go back into that second one, and I'm going to put a stitch marker in there. I just want you to be able to identify that middle stitch when we come back around. Okay, so the third stitch in that turning is considered number 1. Now remember, we have big gaps and we have little gaps. See, it can be messy. You know, I've been doing this for years, and look at, I don't have a very clean stitch right there to put a single crochet in, but I'm gonna do it. So that'll be number 2, and look, there's a gap. 3, there's a bigger gap. Number 4, there's a smaller gap. 5, again a big gap. Number 6, little gap for number 7. Meet me at the end. You are doing great. Okay, so I've got 24 stitches in there. Now if I do 25 in the small gap and 26 in the big gap, then I'm kind of messing up where my corner was, right? See, this is my first stitch from the first row. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to skip the little one just to keep my counts right. So 25 and then 26 in the same place as the very first stitch where we started our border. Now what do we have to do? We've got 2 in that same stitch, but we need 3. So I'm going to put 1 more in there, and that's my middle one. Yarn over and pull through. Now identify that very first stitch of the row, because you've got 3 in that same spot. I want you to insert your hook, yarn over, and do a slip stitch. There you go. That is the end of round 1. We're going to do a round 2. So identify the stitch where you just did your slip stitch. I want you to chain 1, keep an eye on where that stitch is while you're doing it, insert your hook, yarn over, and do a single crochet in that same stitch. That's number 1. You're going to go across all the way. You're going to put a single crochet in all these single crochets, and you're going to put 3 single crochets in that middle one of the 3 in the corner. Now you see why I had you put a stitch marker in it. So there's number 1, and I just want you to go across and meet me at the corner. And we're back. I have single crocheted across, and now I have the 3 in the corner. So, and let's remember to be kind of loose. Let's relax. Remember to just go 1 stitch at a time. So there's the first one in the corner. There's the middle one of the corner where the stitch marker is. And in that middle one, I want to put how many? We want to put 3 to turn the corner. And then the last one in the corner, there's the top of that stitch. Relax. Our goal at this point, you can even have great big loose sloppy stitches as long as you can identify your stitch. I just want you to be relaxed. And at some point, you know, you're just going to work on just gliding. There's the first one going down the side. Next one, and see how much easier it is to identify where to put this stitch now that you have the first round done in single crochets. That's why I like doing a foundation round of single crochet when I'm doing borders, so that I have something to put other stitches in. You can do, you know, a lot of fancy, pretty shell work and all kinds of stuff if you have easily identifiable foundation stitches all the way around. Okay, so once again, I'm going to pause the video and have you meet me down at the corner where hopefully you have a stitch marker in that middle of the 3 in the corner. Okay, here we are again. I've made it to my corner. The middle of those 3 in the corner has a stitch marker in it so that I can easily identify it and insert my hook. Pull out the stitch marker. I want you to use stitch markers liberally. You would think as much as I originally used them, I would have better looking stitch markers. Okay, so there's 1, 2, and 3. And anytime you are having trouble with tight stitches that you need to get your hook into, your yarn needle is your friend and can help you identify those stitches and help you open up those stitches so that you can get your hook in there. So remember, 1 stitch at a time, relax. You know, if you're having tension problems, and a lot of people do on their first projects, drop that off of your, you know, I hold it like this. Drop that working strand off of your little finger and try just like this. This might help you loosen up. Try different ways. Just to work on making sure that tension is loose, and take your time and forgive yourself. It's not going to be perfect. Okay, single crochet down to the next corner, and I will meet you there. Okay, here we are again at the next corner, and the middle one of the 3 in that corner thankfully has a stitch marker in it. You can even use that to open that up a little bit if you need to, whatever it takes. So There's 1, there's 2, and there's 3, and now we have turned the corner. Here's the next one. We are going to single crochet all the way along this side, and I will meet you at the last corner. Okay, now I hope this doesn't confuse you, but here is our very first stitch in this round, and here is the third stitch of the 3 that are in this corner. Let's focus, please. Okay, so here is the second, and here is the third. Now it kind of seems like this is a stitch, but it's not. What that is, focus please. There we go. What that is your slip stitch over into your first one. Then we did a chain 1, and here is the first stitch of the second row. So I'm going to do, so there's the first one, second one, and here is the third one. That slip stitch kind of makes a false stitch, doesn't it? So I'm going to skip over that. I'm going to put 1 in here, 1. I'm going to put my 3 in the center one. I'm going to skip the slip stitch here, and I am going to slip stitch into the very first one of this round. So let's do that together. And if it's hard for you to identify your stitches, you might take your time and kind of poke around with your yarn needle to see if you can't match up what I'm talking about. Do your best. But if you can't get it exactly right, forgive yourself. So here's the first one of the 3 that are in the corner. And here, let's see here. So this is the first one going across. This is the middle. So we're going to put 3 in there, right? Right. 2, 3, and then there's already 1 in the third one. So we're going to skip the slip stitch and the chain 1, and we are going to slip stitch into the top of the very first stitch of this round. And a slip stitch is, let me show you that again, because we've only done that 1 or 2 times before. We insert, yarn over, pull through, and just pull on through. Okay, now finishing off just like before, we chain 1, and I leave 6 or 8 inches of a tail, so I have plenty to use to weave in. And now I'm just going to pull that through. I want you to use your yarn needle to weave in your ends again, and I'll meet you back here. We're going to discuss your first assignment. Okay, ends are woven in, dog hairs picked off of it. I want you to look at this. Look at what you just did. You made a very practical, usable piece. Now, after you crochet a second one, I want you to take pictures of your set, warts and all. I want to see pictures. Either email to me or post it in the MeWe group. Whatever you do, make sure I get a chance to see this wonderfully, probably very flawed piece of work that you just accomplished. And as soon as you do that, I want you to take it to the sink, soak it with warm water, soap it up, and wash a dish. Or take it to the bathroom, throw it in the shower, and use it the next time you bathe. This is a super functional thing, and I don't care how many mistakes are in it. You can use this. I want you to be proud of yourself for what you just accomplished. This first video is probably going to be one of the longest and hardest ones in the whole Crochet Skills Development series. Please be proud of your work. Please let me see it. Do your second one, because what this is about is your muscle memory. Yes, we're learning, some technical crochet things. We're learning the symbols, we're learning the abbreviations, we're learning how to read a pattern, we're learning how to count stitches. But most of all, what the Crochet Skills Development course is highly focused on is your muscle memory. Please do a second one and show me your set when you're done. I don't care if it looks horribly crooked, and it doesn't matter. It's a dishcloth or a washcloth, whatever you want it to be. Please be happy with your work. I know that I am super proud of anyone who is following along with me. And thank you so much for trusting me to carry you through this fairly long process. And I will see you in the next video for assignment number 2. Have a great day.